Deni has asked me to recite an excerpt of the sonnet "The New Colossus" by Emma Lazarus, which is engraved at the base of the Statue of Liberty. "Peep, ancient lands, your storied pomp," cries she. "With silent lips, give me your tyrant, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." Today's second speaker, Deni.
America is a land of refugees. Some of the earliest arrived in 1620, when the Pilgrims boarded the Mayflower in search of sanctuary from religious persecution. The original colonists were a diverse people, comprised of various social and religious groups, all seeking a better life. Wave after wave of immigrants, the Irish, Italians, Russians, and Jews, among others, came after troubles abroad, making America a melting pot, a land of immigrants. Yet today, many Americans are refusing haven to those in need. Since the Syrian refugee conflict arose with the eruption of the civil war in 2011, an estimated 9 million people have attempted to leave the country, fleeing from the horrors of ISIS and Bashar al-Assad's destructive and deadly regime. Many have expressed the desire to immigrate to America, and copious U.S. humanitarian organizations have suggested actively pursuing and assisting these refugees. But countless citizens and politicians across our nation are speaking against admitting these innocent people. They claim that current screening procedures are ineffective. These refugees will bring terrorism and crime, and they will drain money from American taxpayers. This deep-seated and institutionalized racism and xenophobia makes opponents believe that accepting these refugees will be detrimental to America. However, the American people and government should abide by the principles of our nation and show compassion by welcoming these refugees into our country with respect. Questions have been raised regarding the American screening process for immigrants and whether or not it can be exploited by terrorists. When 130 people were killed recently by terrorists in Paris, a fake passport of a Syrian refugee was found near one of the bodies, instilling fear in Americans that this could happen to us. In reality, the program to immigrate to America involves an extensive 13-step process, including background checks, interviews, vaccinations, and vetting against multiple U.S. government organizations. Overall, it takes about 18 to 24 months for an applicant to reach refugee status and be admitted to the country. Californian Representative Zoe Lofgren argued in a House of Representatives debate, "We are the beacon of light, of democracy, of freedom in the world. And part of that value of America is allowing people who are escaping monsters like ISIS to be able to become Americans like us. We need to screen and make sure that we are completely safe. But if we stop that program, we give ISIS a win." To attract followers, ISIS preaches that Western countries are anti-Muslim. So, as Representative Lofgren stated, when we oppose refugees, we play directly into their rhetoric. Additionally, refugees are statistically less violent and less likely to commit crimes than average American citizens. Kathleen Newland, a founder of the Migration Policy Institute, notes that refugee resettlement is far from ideal for potential terrorists. Since the 9/11 attacks, America has accepted 745,000 refugees from around the world, and only 2 of them have been arrested on domestic terrorism charges, while in the same 14 years, there have been 497 American arrests on these charges. President Barack Obama has been trying to clear up misconceptions about the refugees and stated recently, "The idea that somehow they pose a more significant threat than all of the tourists who pour into the United States every single day just doesn't jive with reality." Of course, there can be no assurance that the acceptance of Syrian refugees will be entirely risk-free. However, any problems would have no correlation with the group's ethnicity or religion. One of the biggest objections to accepting Syrian refugees is that they will compete with natural-born American citizens for finite resources, such as food, healthcare, housing, and jobs. 31 governors have already vowed not to accept the refugees and argue that we cannot afford to help them. According to research conducted by the National Conference of State Legislators, this past year, the American government spent less than 0.0002% of our annual budget on assisting any refugees. However, this argument entirely relies on the assumption that the refugees will not contribute to our society. The Center for American Progress estimates that foreign-born residents have contributed thousands of dollars more to the economy in tax receipts than they receive from governmental aid. While it may take time for them to get on their feet, they are an investment in our future. In some cases, the Manhattan Institute cites that immigration increases the wages of native-born Americans. Overall, America could even make a net profit on each immigrant and will continue to benefit for as long as they work in our country. Not only will they enhance our economy, they will enrich our culture. Today, it is difficult to imagine that America would have fought against admitting the families of President John F. Kennedy, Frank Sinatra, Steve Jobs, and Mark Zuckerberg. But we did, and we can't let it happen again. In President Barack Obama's 2016 State of the Union address, he said, "As frustration with our system grows, there will be voices urging us to fall back into tribes, to scapegoat fellow citizens who don't look like us, or pray like us, or vote like we do, or share the same background. We can't afford to go down that path. It won't deliver the economy we want, or the security we want. But most of all, it contradicts everything that makes us the envy of the world." First and foremost, our goal is to protect America, but our responsibility to humanity cannot be ignored by turning our backs on our moral obligation to save those in need. The only alternative to migrating to the United States or other Western countries is to submit to a grim life in refugee camps. Nearly 5 years ago, the Zatari refugee camp was set up in Jordan and now houses 90,000 Syrians who fled the war. Abu Omar, a carpenter from southern Syria, moved to Zatari in the cold of winter with his wife and children. Opening up about his experience, Omar describes his first nights in the camp. "We were all living in a tent that used to leak every time it rained, but there was no option. We either stayed in that tent or took our children to their death." Omar says that his only goal is to see that his children can study and have a better life than the one he has endured. These conditions, whether staying under the al-Assad regime, hiding from ISIS, or barely surviving in a refugee camp, are inhumane and unacceptable. We have a duty to save them, and our nation must live up to its reputation as a symbol of liberty. The Syrian refugee crisis is not new. It has been going on for years, but people around the world only saw the staggering amount of deaths as statistics until September 3rd, 2015, when the body of 3-year-old Aylan Kurdi washed ashore in Turkey. This innocent young child drowned trying to flee Syria with his family. As images of his grief-stricken father holding his body spread across the media, the world finally received a wake-up call, a recognition that our politicians must provide safe passage away from Syria. Aylan's father, Abdullah Kurdi, is now the only surviving member of his family. The day after his son's body was found, Kurdi said, "Now I don't want anything. Even if you give me all the countries in the world, I don't want them. What was precious is gone." These refugees are not statistics. They are precious human beings, and they must be saved. Thank you.